see my kung fu? I'll show you.
Hello there, it's Richard here.
Hi, it's Dave.
And today we're looking at Street Fighter V, which we've got here running on PlayStation 4 and PC. So the interesting thing here is that the game is cross-platform, so you can fight other people whatever system they're running on. And at the moment, Street Fighter V is available on PC and PlayStation 4. And also the Capcom Fighting Network, is that its name?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, basically the Capcom Fighting Network, CFN, also allows you to save off replays onto the network, and again, these are cross-platform. So this opens up a really interesting opportunity that we don't usually get, which is that on PC and PlayStation 4 we can mirror gameplay perfectly between both systems. So initially, basically what we've got here is a straight 1080p presentation, and that's common to both PlayStation 4 and the PC, but obviously you can move the PC version up. And we've also got the PC version running at absolute maximum settings, and well, what do you reckon, Dave? The PlayStation 4 isn't quite there.
It doesn't look quite as refined as the PC game. The most obvious thing that stands out to me between the two is the PC version is using object motion blur, which enhances the kind of impact of the individual moves.
Yeah, I actually think there might well be a camera blur there on the PC as well, but essentially there's nothing similar to it on PlayStation 4. That's basically the biggest difference that you'll see in this sort of head-to-head footage, which is running in real time at full speed. There are quite a lot of differences if you want to slow it down, if you want to zoom in, and we will be covering that shortly. But yeah, the biggest difference that you're going to see in general gameplay is the motion blur that's on the PC version of the game. Yeah, and that's not present there on PlayStation 4, but the funny thing is, you're zoomed out so far from the action during general gameplay that a lot of the differences you can't really tell what's going on there, so it looks very, very similar. And the fact that we're running at 60 FPS, that kind of introduces a blur of its own in most LCD screens. So again, that kind of bridges the gap somewhat. What's the other thing you reckon, Dave, that sort of separates these two?
I think there's a slight difference in depth of field between the two in terms of the post-processing.
I think the whole post-processing pipeline is much, much better on PC, and I actually think the most obvious thing you'll notice during gameplay is anti-aliasing. So Street Fighter V uses Unreal Engine 4. It's probably the most high-profile example of the engine that we've seen so far, and it uses a temporal anti-aliasing solution, and I believe that the PC version is using a version of that TAA which uses more samples, so you get a much smoother look, and you can kind of see that on the waterfall here.
I think this stage here on the ground, you just saw you can see it's a lot smoother on the PC, whereas when it zooms back out, there's more shimmering on the PlayStation 4 version.
Yeah, that's right, those marble
the
stone.
grooves between the marble
yeah, you can
tiles.
see that actually in the head-to-head. You can kind of see that sort of pixel shimmering on the PlayStation 4. It's just almost completely absent on the PC. And this is anti-aliasing that's set to max, and the equivalent on the PlayStation 4, which is actually similar to most of the quality presets, is actually at the medium setting. So yeah, that's quite interesting. Another thing which separates the two is texture quality, which is quite interesting, bearing in mind that the PlayStation 4 has so much RAM. I didn't really expect to see that at all, especially as the PC version on Max seems to be able to work just fine on a 2GB GPU. So it may well be the case that they just lowered texture quality there, maybe to facilitate faster loading times on the console. And to be honest, when you're playing the game, in general gameplay, it's really difficult to see any difference at all in texture quality, especially when the action is so fast and running at 60 FPS. Really and truly, you only see it on the intros and outros, and even then, again, they're running so fast that you can't really tell the difference. So, PC version, essentially, well, I think you'd agree with me, Dave, it's more really a case of extra refinement, and the object motion blur is probably the biggest differentiating factor.
Yeah, definitely. As you can see, like running side by side here in real time, it's hard to spot differences outside of the post-processing. So I think that's the biggest thing with the PC, is just an extra refined image. I think the PS4 version actually holds up really well in real time when you're not sort of nitpicking still screenshots or slowed down footage.
Yeah, I think it looks great.
It doesn't look out of place.
It's just the anti-aliasing, I think, in some of the scenes that stands out as being a bit subpar. But aside from that, it really is just the motion blur that really differentiates between the two. But yeah, that's quite interesting. We're running this on a i7 with a Titan X, so we basically wanted to blitz it to make sure that we didn't drop any frames whatsoever. But one thing we have found, which is quite odd, is that the PC version doesn't frame skip. So if you don't have the hardware to get the job done, the game slows down, kind of like an old SNES
It's
game.
like an old, yeah, it's like an old school.
Yeah, kind of
16-bit title, and it means all the all your gameplay inputs, the motion is all slowed down, so it quickly goes out of sync if you're doing like comparison footage. And in the game, it means that your timing's all wrong.
Yeah, I mean, in our tests you really needed something like a GTX 950 to match the PlayStation 4 experience, but that held up pretty well, didn't it?
It did, and I managed to put anti-aliasing on max on that and keep, I think, textures and shadows on high, or something approaching that. So I managed to eclipse PS4 a little bit.
Yeah, so John's going to be doing like a full comparison, full blow-by-blow comparison that's going to cover off pretty much all of the settings, and you'll see that PlayStation 4, it's kind of mostly around the medium level. There's a couple of areas that might be slightly reduced in terms of the intros and the outros, but that's sort of it. Anyway, I hope you really enjoyed this video. It's one of the few times where we're able to match gameplay so precisely between PC and console, so it's been quite a treat for us to do this. We'll be back with a look at performance across a range of PC hardware, because it really is crucial to hit 60 frames per second. But in the meantime, that's all we've got for now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.